Hey, it's Joy. I've got big feelings about little things, and I want to talk about it. Oh yeah, I'm mad about it. And the fact that everyone else is not up in arms about it is a big part of the problem. Oh, I bawled my eyes out, like I always do. It was the sweetest thing. Oh, it was the cutest thing. It was the funniest thing. Thanks for being here. Let's go.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here. I'm always so grateful that you've joined me. I wish you were here in person, but I thank you. Whether you listen to every episode or this is your first or you listened to the first one and now you're here, I thank you so much. I'm in a very nostalgic type of place today or lately because I'm starting to have some feelings that I have felt before, and they are familiar to me, but they're very specific. These feelings are reminding me of my former life when I was in the radio business. When I was probably in high school or something, somebody said, "Oh, you'd be great at that. You'd be great at like doing stuff on the radio." And during that time, what that meant to me was Kid Craddock in the morning. That's what was radio to me. I grew up in Kid's hometown, and so he was a part of my vernacular for a long time. I was sitting in 8th grade art class, which that is such a good memory to me. One of my absolute like longtime best friends, Jessica, and I were in art together. I gotta ask her if she remembers this. And we had this. Obviously, we had a hippie for an art teacher. Have you ever had a conservative as an art teacher? No, we had every art teacher is a hippie, I think. But she was legit. She was so fun. One day, she had us do caricatures of each other. And Jessica and I, like many people, spent a ton of time together and we loved each other, but I'm sure we were getting on each other's nerves at that time because we're both teenagers or preteens or whatever that age was, and we're trying to figure out our lives and who we are and what we're going to do and all the things. And we started doing caricatures of each other. And the kind of motions and stuff that we were doing and like the tone of our voice was that we were being snarky and sarcastic. But every caricature that we did was just highlighting something that the other one liked about themselves. Like Jessica is still to this day some of the best hair I've ever seen. She had this naturally curly, soft, but like very full. You know, when you're a kid, you have no idea that you have full hair. You know, you're always comparing it to your friends and you don't realize, oh, well, compared to a 55-year-old, I've got a ton of hair. But she had stunning, long, curly hair. And, you know, I made this caricature like she had even so much more hair. And she was like, good, I like that. And then she made a caricature of me with long eyelashes. And I was like, good, I like that. And so it was very funny to me that we were acting as if we were snarky, but then we were like, you know, this thing that makes you beautiful, it's even more beautiful than that. I don't know why that memory sticks with me and some don't. I would love to understand, especially some of those random memories. I always wonder how something sticks and how something else doesn't. But that one stuck and that was fun. But that was the art class in which one day someone was like, they fired all the DJs at the Eagle. And, you know, we didn't have phones back then. It was like someone probably read that in the newspaper. And someone goes, even Kid Craddock? And they're like, even Kid Craddock. And we're like, what? Then like 6 months later, they flipped a radio station. I don't even know what it used what it was before this, because what feels like my whole lifetime, it was pop. And so they made it the new 106.1 Kiss FM, playing all the new hits. And Kid Craddock did the morning show, and he kind of transitioned from this like young punk guy that was on the rock station and doing like, he did this thing called Burn Your Buns. It was basically like a punked or a prank phone call basically on somebody and put it on the air. That's when he kind of transitioned from that into like husband, dad, Mr. Community guy. And I mean, I was there when they were trying to find his sidekick, and they had 5 different people audition. One Monday, one Tuesday, one Wednesday, one Thursday, one Friday, and one of them was Kelly Raspberry. And then she moved here, and it feels like a lifetime ago because they were so young back then, and so much of life was different, and the radio business was different. And I'll tell you another Kid Craddock story sometime soon, but that was what I imagined when I went into radio, was to be like a Kelly Raspberry type of person. And I feel like explaining this, but I don't know that you really have to. I think most people know what a morning show is on a radio station, right? So they have different kind of personalities, but I mean, even the show, not just the people, but the shows have different personalities. But the concept is like, you will get some news, you will get a little bit of weather, but you're going to get like what's going on in the world. And the people usually have good chemistry and banter back and forth, and they'll maybe talk to some listeners, they'll play games or whatever. And their whole vibe is like, usually to make you feel like you're friends. Oh, I was hanging out with some friends on the way into work, or we were laughing, and then they also told me what the traffic was, so I wasn't going to be late to work. Because back in that day, we did not all have Waze on our phone. We did not have a constant update as to where car accidents were and what lanes were closed and who was doing construction. So that was somebody's job. And for a time, that was my job. I was a fill-in traffic person, and the same group supported all the traffic people. So I just would rotate the seat and fill in for a couple of them. And I probably should tell you that story too, because it was really, really fun. That was like one of the funnest jobs I've ever had. And it was definitely one that people remember the most. But I've done all kinds of things. I did a morning show for a little bit. I did a morning show by myself in one of my earliest jobs. I have done news before. I told you one time about doing I was a sideline reporter for a football team, a high school football team. But most of my job, and one time I made commercials all day. That's what I did, was make commercials. But the most often, 90% of the time, what I was doing was standing in a studio by myself in front of our board, which is how you made sure the music was on, and the little jingles that play in the middle and all that stuff, that's on. Make sure your microphone's on or off, or that's type of stuff. You're sitting there and your microphone's in front of you, and I would play music. The music is decided for you. The concept or the kind of show that they want to put on is like, let me know what you want to hear and I'll put it on for you. It's all determined. It was determined the day before. There's someone called a music director or a program director. There's usually both at most decent sized stations. Sometimes it's the same person. I did that job. I was a program director and a music director for tiny stations, but you still get to pick the music, you decide when it's going to play, how often it's going to play, where it's going to go, and you report that back because the songwriters and the singers need to get paid. So there's so many different roles that I played, but the main one was just playing that music that somebody else picked and making sure that all stayed on the air. So play a song, play a jingle, play another song, make sure they sound good together. You don't want a bunch of dead air, we call it, meaning song, quiet, jingle, quiet, song. You always want it to all flow together, so there's always noise coming out. Always something coming out of that speaker. Couple of times an hour. Some stations have it determined, and they'll say, this is the song that you talk over, and you talk about one of these 4 things, and this is the song you talk over, and you're going to talk about one of these, or you get to pick, talk about, or you just decide when. Most places have certain things you need to cover, You have to talk to one listener. You have to play this game, or you have to promote our big contest right now. You have to make sure everybody knows they got to sign up or so they can go on this cruise or, whatever thing. Or there's this fun event we're having this weekend. Make sure everybody knows about it. Make sure people know to listen to the morning show. Make sure they listen. There all kinds of different rules, but the program director would let you know that. Here's our clock, they would call it. Here's what the clock looks like. We're going to play a new hot song at this time of the hour. Then we're going to play one that's like a year old, but still kind of fun. We don't do it very often, but it's kind of fun to listen to. And then, so it was all determined. You knew your clock and you just have to fit it in. And that job was very fun for me. It was very interesting. I worked at all kinds of different music places. So, I worked one time at a place that did classic country, and I did not know any of that. I didn't grow up listening to that. I knew Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, and that was it. And I didn't know Merle Haggard, and I didn't know Johnny Cash, and even though the names kind of sounded familiar, I didn't know any of their music. I had to learn it. I ended up getting quite a soft spot in my heart for a lot of the old music that I was just like, man, I see why people love it and I see why they don't want to let it go. But I worked at country music. I've worked in pop music. I worked a little bit in rock music. So I always liked to dig in and kind of learn some of the song. Of course, I worked at Contemporary Christian for a long time. I loved to get into what the music was. I loved to learn about the artist, and I would talk about that a lot of time. But over time, that experience became less and less fulfilling as the time went on. And I think 2 things happened. I think the first thing that happened was toward the end of my career, I had the opportunity to sit in on a huge, huge morning show. It was one of the competitors of Kid Craddock in the morning, and it was led by a guy named Terry Dorsey, and he had a partner named Hawkeye. They had been on the air for many years. I knew them as kids. I remember seeing them on a commercial when I was a kid, and they were saying play the secret sound or whatever and win $10,000. And I had the opportunity to be on that show. And as fun as it was just to be off air with them, someone that does that for a living and is a good person is someone that is an absolute blast to hang out with. I know there's so many examples. Thankfully, I didn't run across them, but there's a bunch of talented people that are kind of jerks. And so I think that probably wouldn't be very fun. It would be like when the microphone's on and you're on the air, this is fun. This is fun to be part of, but I'm not going to be around someone that's throwing stuff and no. Well, Hawkeye and Terry were both 2 of the nicest, most supportive, got along great with each other. So that was the other thing. You never know what you're walking into. Is it do these people really like each other? Or are they just faking it? They had a lot of respect for each other and they had a good time. So getting to spend time with them was really fun. And it was really interesting getting to watch them work and how do they figure out what they're going to talk about and what's planned and what's natural and how do they decide if they disagree? All that stuff was very interesting to me. But being part of it on the air during the process, after a while, getting to put my 2 cents in and say, like, what about this or what about that? Whether we did it or not, it was very kind of them just to let me be part of the conversation and put out a good product, which I think we did. That was a very different experience than just sitting in a studio by myself waiting for the next George Strait song to come on. And so the one issue that came up was now that I had that type of experience, now that was something I could compare to, that made it difficult. The other thing that happened was I started to realize, to an outsider, this seems like I'm getting to live my dream, right? Because all you think when you're just a friend or somebody that knew me in high school or my family member, whatever person that knows me, it's like, oh, I was driving to work and I heard you on the radio and I turned it up. It was really fun. It's like kind of funny to hear someone on the radio. It's fun. And about 50% of the people would say, I knew it was you from the second you opened your mouth. It sounded exactly like you. And the literal other 50% would say, it sounded nothing like you. And so I don't know what to say to that. It was literally half and half. And they were both so emphatic about it that it cracked me up. But to them, I'm getting to do the thing, right? Because my voice, sorry, my microphone's too loud today. Because my voice coming through the speaker is the thing that makes it seem like that's what's happening. But from where I'm sitting, I'm experiencing the least satisfying part of the thing that I'm doing, not the most satisfying thing. And that was interesting to realize. It was something that I had to come to terms with myself, but I also like when I hear my voice coming out of the speaker, and I like doing this. But if I like it, do I like it enough to keep doing this, or do I need to figure out the other part, and do I need to chase that? So what I'm gonna let you sit with that for a little bit, and I'm gonna sit with that for a little bit, and next week we'll finish this conversation, because that is a spot. We'll finish this conversation next week. In the meantime, though, make sure what you're saying you like, what you say you don't like, what you're chasing, what you think you're chasing is the right thing. Because sometimes all this stuff around it seems like what you're chasing when it's really something else in there. And then I'll tell you why I'm struggling with this. And we'll fix everything next week. Okay? Talk soon.
Thanks for listening to Little Things, Big Feelings with Joy Delaney. I'm James, the producer, editor, director, and executive producer. Follow Joy on socials at Joy Delaney Cox on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Honestly, forget TikTok. I don't even know how to use it anyway.
You don't know how to use it anyway.
James?
Follow Joy on socials at Joy Delaney Cox on Instagram and Facebook. See you next week.